the way they put this plate in, the plate as well as the motor is threaded, and that means it goes through the threads in the plate and then to here, and that's not really the problem. The problem is this larger motor. The larger motor uses larger diameter screws, and so because of that, it won't go in the plate threads. So I have to drill out the threads, and even though I drill the threads out, this should still work because it'll catch, these screws will catch the threads in the motor. So that's the next thing we're going to do. This is what I mean by the plate is threaded. You actually can screw the screw into the plate and it threads. The plate is a mating surface to the screw and it actually threads in there. And I personally don't particularly like that because that actually limits the amount of pressure you can put on the plate on the motor, because if the screw bottoms out in the plate before it gets screwed all the way to the motor, that's going to limit your pressure. But I guess they know what they're doing when they did this. So we're going to drill these threads out so I can get a larger screw in there. This is the screw that I want to put in place. I'm going to put this one in here. As you can see, it's too big. So we're going to drill out a little bit and see if we can resolve that. Okay, so this is a useful tool as a micrometer. It lets you easily take precise measurements. This is an inexpensive one. I got it off of Banggood. It works pretty good. If you want to get one to last a long time, you want to get one that's metal. This one's plastic. The metal one actually has wheels that it rolls on. It's really nice, but this works pretty good. So I'm going to measure my screw, and my screw says it's 2.8 millimeters. So now my drill bits are in inches, and additionally they're in fractions, so that's a lot of conversion. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to measure something that's close to 2.8 inches. So let's see, what do I have here? Not inches, but centimeters. Here's 2.3. That's kind of close. I might be able to get that to work with a little wiggling around. And I think my other ones are too big. 2.7. That will work. Yep. I also recommend having one of these too. This is a millimeter and inch scale, or ruler, but in engineering world they call them a scale. And so what this allows you to do is measure distances in either inches or millimeters. It's nice when you want to measure distances, like for example, if you want to find out what's the width of between here and here in your vehicle. Like you want to order a battery, for example. You want to know how much space you have, so you can put this in here and measure. So I see that I have 40, 45, 42, 43 millimeters. So I don't want a battery wider than 43 millimeters, and the length here is, the length here is 75 millimeters or so. So a 75 millimeter battery will fit in here, so these are handy as well. Alright, so as you can see, I have the plate in the vise. This is the safest way to do it. There's other ways you can do it. You can use some vice grips and step on them or something like that, but I've hurt my fingers enough time to know that I need to invest in a vise. So plus you can use this for a lot of other things. So we're going to go ahead and drill out the threads. That was easy. Alright, let's see if that works. And interesting, the way these motors are made, these two screws are further apart or further out in diameter than these. And this, so I'm assuming that's for the next grade motor, maybe a 1/16 or 1/14 installation. But we're using the smaller ones right here. There we go. And See. Just thought I'd let you know that these screws did not come with this motor. It came with no screws. And so I just happen to have this screw kit here that I use for my projects. It has all kinds of screws with some tweezers to pull things out. And these are the M type screws, they're metrics. And so I was able to get the right one only because I had this kit. So what I'll do is it's got 500 pieces in here. And what I'll do is I will put it in the comments to let you know what to get. Now, so let's see, this is in place. There's an issue here I discovered. Oh, I don't know, let's see. Something's going on. I think we're okay. First I thought the gear was too small. Might be, let's see. Oh, I see this. You see what happened? The hex key or the grub screw is hitting this screw. So I'm gonna have to file these screws down because it's hitting right there. That's not cool. Other than that, I think it's fine. Okay, so look what I found. It looks like all hex keys or grub screws are not created equal. This gear had a smaller, and this is a bigger gear too, it has a smaller screw than the 20 pin that we want to use. And so if you look at it, one's shorter than the other. And it fits. So I'm going to take this one here, this shorter one, and I'm going to put it in this fella and see if it works. And look at there, it fits. Nice, huh? So we're going to put it here and see, and tighten it, and look at that. Okay, so now the screws, both screws are back in place, and if you look here, it's got real good clearance, and it's nice that that screw, that grub screw or that set screw is flush, totally flush. So we're gonna do another test fit, put the motor back in, and try it again, and look at there, fits like a glove. And let's spin the wheels. Oh yeah. So here I have 3 motors. This is the original motor. It is the 4500 kV motor, and this is the one with the ship with the car. And so I originally upgraded it with this motor. This is a 2845 30K 800 kV motor, and even though it's a larger motor, it's longer and it's wider. Unfortunately, because the kV is less, it wasn't that much faster, if at all. And also, I initially put on a 20 pin pinion gear. The original pinion gear was 18. This one was 20, and as you can see, it was the wrong size. And what happened was it did run a little bit, made a couple of runs, but then it stopped because it was the wrong size, and it actually stripped it while in place on the spur gear. And if you see, you can see the damage we got there. And fortunately, my spur gear was not damaged, so it's still good. I think that's because the spur gear is made out of a harder metal, and the pinion gear that I set the third-party aftermarket pinion gear is made out of aluminum, and it just tore it up. So once again, this was a 20 pin, and so I went back to the drawing board and had to decide what size pinion to get, and I had a leftover pinion gear on this motor, this pinion gear right here, and this is a 22 pin pinion gear, which came off of the DRC 9201. This is the original motor for the DRC 9201. So you know I have a video on upgrading the 9201. So I got a bunch of these pinion gears left over. And so I said, let me see if this pinion gear fits on here. And guess what? It does. And so I was wrong by putting a 20 pin in. So now I got a 22 pin. And this is the 22 pin pinion gear I have. And this is mounted to another engine that I'm going to be using. It's a 2847 5600 kV motor, and this is the 22 pin pinion gear. A few things to note in installing this pinion gear. If you look at it, you may notice that I have how close the pinion gear is to the mounting bracket. So that was necessary because this is a larger gear and it takes up a lot of more space. And so if you look at the fitting here, there's not a lot of space for the larger pinion gear. And if it moves up by just a millimeter, not only would it hit here, the cover won't fit. So you have to get it as close as possible to the plate so that everything fits properly. So now everything fits perfectly. I gotta say, I love the way this cover plate comes off without having to take the whole thing apart. Others, you gotta take the whole thing apart, but you don't. You just take this cover plate off. And so that way it's a perfect fit. But in order to get that perfect fit, I had to do some modifications. So I'm gonna remove the pinion gear. And show you what's going on here. All right, listen a little more. Okay. So now, if you look at the plate, you see some scoring going on here. I did that with an angle grinder. You can do the same thing with the file, but it would take a lot more work. I had an angle grinder and I ground it down. The reason being is in order to get it to go as low as it needs to, it actually goes below the height of the plate. However, if you go below the height of the plate, you can't tighten the pinion gear. And so in order to do that, I scored it here. And that works perfectly because the Allen key tool goes right in that groove, and I can push it down real low and get it tight. So that works really well. Also, like I said, you can also use the pinion gear from the DRC 9201, which is the same size, and it's a press-on gear. However, it'll press down, but unfortunately it doesn't go far enough. If you put this gear on, it fits, and this, last time I did it, it wouldn't go on. It would have gone now. No. Oh. It goes on, but it's jammed. And if this happens to you, it's because that pinion gear is riding too high. If I take the cover off, it works. But see how close it is to the edge of the framing? And my guess is when you put this on, it's hitting this part here. And it hits right there. So if you want to use your leftover gear from the previous upgrade from the 9201, what you'll have to do is file this down. I was prepared to do that. You can do that very easily with some sandpaper or a file or angle grinder. File it down and then you can press it on there. Another consideration in installing the motor is you need to adapt the motor terminal connectors to the ESC connectors. The ESC connectors for this 45 amp ESC, the opening diameter is wider, made for a larger motor. Like for example, this motor is a 3650. It works perfectly with these because if you look at it, it has a much larger connector than the 2847 motor that I have. So what you have to do is you have to compensate for that. And there's different ways, and the way I do it easily and cheaply is I get some wire. I believe this might be some 18 gauge, maybe 20 gauge wire. And what I do is I take it, I put it inside and hang it kind of like that. If I can focus on it. And that takes up some of the space, and I take it and I go like this. Bam. And it's a nice tight fit. It's a nice electrical contact. And also the wire has the insulation on there so that it's not shorting out. And you have an option, you can leave like that, or you can cut it off and just have none of it showing. The disadvantage of that is when you take it out, it'll come back out and you may not be able to pick it up. So that's how I solved that problem. So now we have our new motor, our 5600 kV 2847 motor. We upgraded from a 18-pin pinion gear to a 22-pin pinion gear. So we got a faster, more powerful, more capable motor, a bigger pinion gear, and so we should be able to see quite a bit of improvement. So there's nothing really left now but to go ahead and do the speed test. Let's see what that is. I wonder will these fit?